We're good? All right,
Wait
y'all.
for Scott. Wait for Scott.
Oh. We're not here. All right, well, thank everybody for coming. This is the December 7th, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Paula Summers, Kelvin Eugene, Jennifer DeSantis, Ruthie Rabineau, Amanda Barton, myself, Joel Adrian. Present for the planning staff, Eric Schultz and Lee Bancho. These proceedings are being recorded, so we ask that anybody that speaks identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the Board of Zoning Appeals treats the matter as being uncontested, passes it as a matter of course. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. We next hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We will then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions, the fact-finding function of the board. 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54.924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on the matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good. The character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a couple of housekeeping items. As you see on your desk, Innovate generated quite a few written comments. Our admin staff, Christina, did her best to group them, but a lot of them are kind of related to two specific projects, so she kind of separated them the best she could. We sent those out to you, and hopefully you had time to read them. The second smaller packet are emails that are received today, maybe a couple last night, that missed the Innovate deadline, so I printed those out for you as well. That's it.
All right. Then,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. During the course of the agenda, I did produce 17 and a half or 18 and a half by 17 exhibits for each of you per agenda item. It will be exactly what the slide shows, but I thought it might be helpful to have so you don't get kind of a sore neck. And then we do have a larger exhibit that we can share, and maybe the applicant has additional exhibits, but I just wanted to state that as well.
all right, thank you. With that, I think that we have 5 items on the agenda. Items A3 and A4 will be very lengthy, and B1 should not. And so I'm kind of asking the board if it would be all right if we do items A1, A2, and then we'll jump to B4 or B1, and then we'll do A3 and A4. If anybody has issues with that, let me know. If not, that will be the course and how this meeting will go. So with that, we're going to go ahead and do item A1, which is just a review of the minutes from the November 2nd, 22 meeting. I did not see anything that was off. Anybody have any comments, or if there's a motion?
Make the motion to approve the minutes.
Paula, did you second?
I did.
Okay, so the motion for approval by Amanda, seconded by Paula. All in favor of that motion? In favor? Opposed?
I'm withdrawn because I wasn't here.
That's one. Thank you. So that motion is approved 5-0. All right, so our next item on the agenda is going to be item A2, which is 205 Meeting Street. The TMS numbers are 457-0801-078 through 083, 086, and 027 is zoned GB. Requested variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 4 protected trees.
This is the application submitted by Seaman and Whiteside for tonight's meeting. It was actually for November. They get the 3rd. They wanted to adjust their presentation and a few documents. This is their hardship description. Property entails Charleston Place. It's got multiple properties, TMS numbers, of which a couple are actually city-owned, but the operation, obviously, for arrival and departure uses city property in the garage. You all know it. It's at the corner of King Market and Meeting, and also Hazel, touches Hazel. The area that we're going to address tonight is the courtyard that fronts on Market. This is just an aerial shot. Lee may be able to tell me, but I think Charleston Place opened late 80s, just before Hurricane Hugo, so 86, 87. So I don't know if there were any modifications to this courtyard or this was the original, but the applicant can speak to that. This is just a Google Street view. You can see that there's some work going on the building, an aerial lift in there, but the 4 trees are southern magnolias. Shot. Then I'll go through the applicant slides, and they can elaborate on them, but they ask for a very specific order. So here's just a straight-on look through the gate on Market. The southern magnolias flank the east and west side of the courtyard, basically in the corners. Again, street view from Market. That's the existing conditions, 1, 2, 3, 4. They are the size we, in GB zone properties, commercially zoned properties, every tree 8 inches in diameter or greater is protected. So these were planted, but they have grown to a size to be protected under the ordinance. Tree 1, 15-inch magnolia. Tree 2 on the right, 18-inch magnolia. Tree 3 on the left, 16-inch magnolia. And tree 4 on the right is a 19-inch magnolia. So with the new ownership group that has purchased and is starting to look at major improvements to Charleston Place, they are looking to redo that courtyard, enhance it for the visitor experience as well as the general public. This is a close-up of where they're headed with that design. Buddy's walked or knows that Market Street kind of falls in topo as moving from west to east, and there's a series of steps along that facade that really go to doors, but they're not usable doors. The edge of those steps is actually the property line, and they're looking at raising like we'll have a split level sidewalk, if you will. So you see the steps that are going to lead up into this space, and then there'll be ramps as well. But then the gray area to the south of those steps is the actual public right-of-way adjacent to the curb, Market Street curb. So here you can see an image early on, but they are planning to reinstall or plant trees in that space, but just really give it a major upgrade. And another image of where the design and the vision for that space is headed. This is a letter that they had produced by a certified arborist, Natural Directions, and again, I already stated the sizes of the trees, and he grades all of them feet. Even though they're not grand trees, they're protected, but they're a few issues maybe at the base, at the root flare with girdling roots due to maybe the space, the soil volume that they're growing in. So with that said, staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 20 caliper inches of appropriate trees for the space, and design concept on the project site must submit a landscape plan for staff review and approval.
All right, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present? Would you like to be heard?
Evening, Kirk Graham with Piedmont Hospitality. Eric, you did a great job of explaining it thoroughly for us. One of the major things as part of our renovation that we really want to do is re-engage the public and start drawing people into Charleston Place in a number of different ways. This being one of them. As part of that, our intention is to raise that grade up so if you walk through there, it's a substantial slope down to Market Street. In doing so, and Lee, with Senior Vice, I can talk through it a little bit better than I can. We're going to be elevating that grade and planting above, and ultimately do damage to the trees that are existing in the space today. But part of the goal ultimately would be to plant new trees in that space that allow people to circulate through that courtyard, sit down, have lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever it might be, and really enjoy the outdoor space. So our goal really ultimately is to really activate Market Street to really bring people into Charleston Place in a much more meaningful way over the course of the next couple of years. That being said, I'll let Lee talk any of the specifics for us.
All right. Well, the only things I would add to that would be from the accessibility standpoint, that space was designed initially as a motor court, and it was only used for a very short amount of time before it became obvious that it really didn't function very well as a motor court. So the actual driving surface is lower than the sidewalk around it, so it's not truly universally accessible. And so the new design would be universally accessible, so you could access it from the sidewalk, get anywhere you needed to get within the space, as well as get in to the hotel. The trees that are there now, the magnolias, we really didn't. There was a couple images we had. The two that are in the corner up by the building actually are one-sided because they pruned all those limbs because they're so close to the building. So those two are actually disfigured, and again, because it was a motor court, they were planted in the corners to kind of define that court. With the new vision for that becoming more pedestrian oriented, the intent would be to bring the new trees more into the court, to have them engage with that and provide shade for the patrons that are within the court. It talks about 20 inches. We're probably going to have larger trees than that. The intent is to contract grow the trees. It's going to be a number of years before that improvement actually occurs, so we have the time to get the trees to go in at a fairly mature size. So I'm available to answer any other questions you might have about the space.
Thank you. Just to clarify for you that it was 20 inches total tree replacement, not each tree 20 inches.
No, correct, right, yeah.
Okay.
Those would be 5-inch calipers, so we actually envisioned to get the height that we'd like, probably larger than a 5-inch caliper.
Very good. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else present that's in favor that would like to be heard? Is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? And this application will close to the public to be open to the board for discussion. Questions? I can lead off. I understand the necessity for what you're doing with the complete redesign of that area. And I believe that along with city's recommendation would be in favor of the application.
I'm also in favor. I think it's great to reactivate. That's probably the worst use of square footage in downtown Charleston I've ever seen. It was just totally. I walk by it all the time, and I'm like, why? So I'm excited to see that redesigned and make it accessible and also handicap accessible. That's fairly important. So I'm in favor.
And for clarification, it was done as the motor court and it was used very briefly. And then actually Lee Your firm, didn't you work on the back,
On the back
changing the
side.
back side of it so that you could actually access and have the deliveries and whatnot go off of Meeting and then off of Hazel also. So it hasn't been a functional space, and it's an unfortunate example of the wrong. They wanted something vertical and narrow. I think the trees aren't as stable with all the branches being off of one side, but I'll let the arborist weigh in on that.
I have to say my first
Innovating.
inclination was, oh, they're gonna cut down those trees. But seeing the renderings, especially of what you're imagining for this space, that's what the space wants to be. And I've eaten my lunch there a number of times. What you are proposing is so much better than what there is right now. So I'm definitely in favor of this.
And do you have any thoughts of what you're gonna replant with? Those look like saucer magnolias in the picture,
Yeah, they,
just a graphic.
they are graphically saucer magnolias, and they're probably would be the largest saucer magnolias known to man. So we're probably gonna look at some other options and work with DRC on that.
Mhm.
You said you're contracting the trees to grow for a mature size. You're probably thinking about a 6-inch caliper. Is that?
I would say at least depending on what we ultimately determine as far as the species. I mean, you know, it could be a standard crepe myrtle. It could be an elm. We're trying to find something that has some bloom, but it's open enough to get a little bit of sun. We don't want it to be just totally dark in there underneath the shade of oak trees.
Mhm.
So that'll be a little bit of a challenge finding that perfect tree. But again, we think we've got enough time that we can, you know, find some that are kind of moderate size now and grow them up over the next 2 or 3 years.
We really want to be able for people to be able to walk through there, considering the trees. There's a bistro on the interior as it's adjacent as you're looking at the plan on the right hand side. The bistro in there, we grab coffee, or a date or something, and comes outside. So we want people to be able to flow through there.
And ultimately, we want them to feel substantial enough when they first go in so that you can walk under them and you can feel like it's park-like and, you know, immersive and beautiful. But we also want them to be able to grow into the space because, you know, they need to grow over years. Like, we don't want to have happen what happened previously because, you know, they've grown against the wall. So best practices, we'll put them in, you know, maybe they'll be a lower caliper, but they will be tall enough that, you know, they'll be high branching so you can walk in. And ultimately, from the vision, we would really love them to be flowering to kind of create a spectacle and beautiful vision. Could you just state your name and who you are?
My name is David Kelly.
Very good. Thank you. Sorry. That's okay.
And also, you know, with raising that grade 6 inches to match the curb height, the magnolias.
Right, and Michael Russell's findings about the girdling root or girdled roots are right on.
Any other comments or their motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this as with staff recommendations.
There's a motion for approval by Jennifer, second by Ruthie. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
I in favor.
Anyone opposed? That motion is approved at 6-0.
Okay, bear with me. I gotta go through a lot of slides. Are we going to B1?
I think it would be probably embarrassing if that's all right.
Thank you.
We will we'll jump to item B1 on the agenda. It's all right, I'll go ahead and read it in while you're thumbing through slides. It's Ashley River Road and Dogwood Road. West Ashley, the TMS numbers are 355.6000025, 026, 027, and 083. It's zoned DR1F and requested variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 3 grand trees.
Okay.
Great, you're ready.
This is the application. For a few of you, if you put on your thinking caps, we dealt with this site in, I believe it was just before COVID, early 2020. As you can see, the property owner is Homes of Hope, and this was an affordable housing project. This is the response to hardship for this specific agenda item. Again, it fronts on Ashley River Road with a small frontage on Dogwood, zone DR1F. That building in the center has since been demolished. It's, the two tracks to the north were undeveloped, and then that building, and then the vacant lot on Dogwood. So 9/2/20, I'm sorry, it was later in 2020. I just took a snapshot of this side of the project. So this would be the west side. If you note where the building in the plan northwest, there was a little kink in the parking lot to save a southern magnolia. Opposite that was a red oak to be maintained, and then the yellow tree to the right of that, where the little turnout is, was another southern magnolia. This site is very challenging, and they are hitting some real difficulty meeting the stormwater requirements without losing very much needed affordable units. So they studied it, they met with me. I had an issue as it started to move through the technical review committee with trying to stuff that southern magnolia in that parking lot island. Over my years of experience, when we clear out around southern magnolias that have been in a forested situation, they get exposed to sun and sun scald, and then they're kind of temperamental to construction, as well as red oak. So we talked at length. So they have to put a hard edge on a portion of this pond. So this is the new plan. They straightened out the parking and have to gain more space for grading and the construction of walls for that pond that serves basically as the entire detention system for the project. Here it is up close. We have to have that fire apparatus turnaround. And so these trees are just pretty much in the way. Hate to lose them, but there's a graphic where they will introduce some trees back into that detention area to the north. Again, the main access is off Dogwood, meanders around the B grade trees, terminates with that wonderful B grade tree, open space. The path along Ashley River Road. So that gives you an idea of the previously approved trees plus the three here. I'll let them explain option 1 and option 2 relative to how they're actually going to address and maybe enhance that hard edge pond with a path and what have you, and rotating the building possibly. Tree 36. Actually below 37 to 33 inch red oak. The crown's very, long bowl with a very high crown. Magnolia is basically the same. And then the double magnolia. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 83.5 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site, in addition to the previously approved mitigation inches required, and then the conditions from the previous meeting shall apply as well.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much. Is the applicant present?
Hi, I'm Whitner Tay, I'm a single contract. I think Eric covered everything pretty well with the history of this project. We had stormwater worked out until the new guidelines were adopted, and we had to go back and deepen the pond and make it bigger to account for the new requirements. We had tried to save those 2 trees below the parking in the previous design and kind of had them on a shelf that ever so often might get a little bit wet, but now we realize it would be pretty much inundated in just a regular storm event. It's really not going to be good for them or the community to have to watch them slowly down. And we needed to meet the stormwater requirements for the safety of the community. I happen to agree with Eric about the magnolia that was supposed to go into the tree well. Those struggle, especially in magnolias and tree wells. They tend to become a little bit of a collection point for water as well. We have petitions to remove a number of trees on the site. This was, Derek said, pretty challenging. There's a large number of low quality. I think 88% of the trees we petitioned to remove were either C, D, or F grades on this one, and so we tried to keep a few that really were good and want this to be a really wonderful place to live in general. We would like to come back in with a bit of a boardwalk and try to utilize the pond as an amenity feature for the site. Plant back some trees to help make it feel like part of the community. This is representative of the first option that was presented as far as not tweaking. Yes. So option 1 is what the ownership decided to go with. So it allows for those residents to be able to enjoy the pond from the full length of it, not just the person on the end. And that's why you see it in the final rendering. Anyone have any questions?
It's time we get started. Is there anybody else present that wants to be heard in favor? Or is there anybody present for this application that's opposed? Then we'll close this application to the public and open to the board for discussion.
Nice to see affordable housing going in.
I think the key is that change was initiated by this change in the adoption of the updated standards. So it's not one that was driven by the applicants. They had to react to what was handed down. So I'm fine with the application and certainly sees recommendations.
It's almost like the ones when people come back to extend their approval, almost. But yes, caused by stormwater requirements. I'm not crazy about losing trees, but I think it's it would be ridiculous to require too much reworking of the plan to try to save those, and it wouldn't work. Anyway.
Can the applicant tell us more about the Homes of Hope and what type of development it's going to be?
Jeff Randolph. I provide development services for Homes Hope, who is a nonprofit out of Greenville, operates across the state. It's the largest nonprofit of affordable housing, but single family and attached. They do no apartments over there. This project is in 75 units. It's in conjunction with the city of Charleston partner, and obviously we are struggling on the site, but the number of we're trying to hold firm to that number of affordable units. So every single unit will be affordable.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or any other discussion topics? Or anyone else wants to make a motion?
Can we look at the option 1, option 2 again?
Thank you. Basically, I agree with, you have a forest of trees, you have a high canopy, you take away the trees around that, and then you introduce issues to the trees. So, what Whitner, is that your name?
Yes.
Said about, the community having to watch these trees die. Nobody really wants that. And it looks like what they will be replacing them with will be growing, from a smaller size up and have a much nicer canopy in the long term.
Anybody? Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of staff recommendation.
Sorry.
All right, so motion for approval by Paula, seconded by Kelvin. Say, all in favor of the motion, I in favor.
I'm in favor.
I in favor, any opposed? That's approved. Back to the column. Okay, so we will now proceed to, thank you for allowing the agenda to, thank you, lovely. We will proceed to item A3, which is Fenwick Hall, LA, Johns Island. The TMS number is 34600000260. Is zoned to PUD. Requested variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 17 grand trees. Request a special exception from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 4 grand trees. Request a variance from section 54.330 to allow a reduced impervious construction setback near the bases of grand trees. Number provided as to how many. Send it to you, Eric.
I apologize for the slide. It is zone PUD. I must have cut and pasted and didn't catch that. To start out, I'll give you these packets. Just don't get into them right away, but I just get that out of the way. Need one for paperwork. These are, again, slides that will be presented. Take a trip back to July 7th of this year. I went through the entire presentation, which I plan to do again. You heard from the applicant, and then you heard from opposition. You as a board made a motion to defer the application with the very specific instructions for the applicant to go speak to groups on Johns Island, as well as I believe the Coastal Conservation League was here. So that has occurred. It's taken some time, and I'll just start into the presentation. So here we are today. This is the original application, the letter associated with that describing the trees and the hardship. It is zone PUD. It's a small of the entire PUD. We have the apartments that are under construction. We have this piece and then some residual lands. And the northern pitchfork is shown in this exhibit due, I guess, southeast of the area in blue. We're hearing that that road will be under construction hopefully within the next month or two. Obviously, the entire site, this is pre-clearing for the apartments, is wooded. It does have a sewer easement that kind of traverses through. That's that little right angle line that you see there in the tree canopy. So this is the exhibit that was presented and or the application. I'll go through this, but and then there's a couple subsequent slides, but many, I can't remember the exact year, but I was invited to walk the site and give preliminary grades to trees. So I believe the city grades are on the left of the circles. And then subsequently they hired a consulting arborist and reevaluated the trees, and the grades kind of shifted, sometimes up, sometimes down. So that's on the right side of the tree symbol. But here you can see the number of trees. There is a isolated freshwater wetland, as you can see in the middle. That is to remain treed. That was what was approved with the concept plan. And then the gray areas are open space and proposed stormwater facilities. We do have the buffer against the historic Fenwick property. And then, of course, the PUD has very specific rules about how you treat the west side of the historic Oak LA that actually has an access easement to the Fenwick property down the middle. This is the number of grand trees. 56 in total, 59 blow up. So this represents the subsequent grades of the consulting arborist. This is the letter from the consulting arborist who works for Newkirk Environmental and Forestry. And this is the 930 reevaluation. So old grade to new grade, looking very close at each tree in detail. And then we have numerous photos to look at. If you zero in on any specific tree, we can try and get there for you. So this was the 2019 walkthrough. We did not pick up all the grand trees on this walk. They had to go back and survey additional trees. We either walked past them or we didn't stop and visit for whatever reason. And this kind of shows canopies of the trees. They kind of did some canopy study. That's the faint little purple line around each tree. So these are examples of the live oak in that forest, tree 23. Then I put in save, and I'll explain that in a bit. But this tree is an example of a staff level approval. It's an F. You can see that it's got a lean, it's got a huge crack in it. It should maybe be on the ground already. It's a very hazardous and storm damaged tree. There's an example of an F with a huge crack in it. But numerous photos. If you want to zero in, we can get back to them. I don't know the exact history of this property, but people obviously either managed some timber on it. There was previous cuts made to some trees, as you can see here. The canopy being so dense, a lot of the former major lateral branches are dead, they're petrified. You can prune those out and still have a tree, possibly, but a lot of branches like this, a lot of characteristics of trees with dead stems, kind of petrified. That's typical of live oak. Again, here's an old rip in a tree and how it's trying to compartmentalize. And some vine infested gashes in the base, decay. cavities. This cavity is suspect, but it's a live oak, so without really doing resist the graft type evaluations and getting the full understanding of that cavity, we have live oaks on Daniel Island that are viewed every day that you can see through, and they're doing quite fine. This is an example of like petrified old lateral branches. So this is what I did. I went through this. There was an example of a really bad union between two co-dominant leaders, and this happens to be a water oak. Very typical with water oak, shorter lived tree. So city exhibits, again, this is what I presented last meeting in July, was that, and you'll hear that staff is prepared to recommend for tree removals. But for the trees that we were trying to preserve, I just felt that they were being, better word, shoehorned into small green space, or they were between proposed units and not given the space that they deserve. And Jennifer alluded to it earlier that these trees are used to this environment, but when you start to remove surrounding trees, then they are exposed to wind and light and so on and so forth. So we want to try and manage the micro ecosystem that the trees standing in or sitting in. So I felt that there had to be greater space given to the trees proposed to be preserved. So this was my exhibit that I was referencing. This is the list of variance trees versus special exception trees. So there be 10 variance trees and 5 special exception. And then I did this. This is kind of the tree that I felt, even though it's a water oak, if you give it the space and you keep surrounding trees, I think it has a chance. 28-inch water oak. Burn out dead. This is, you have a tree, it's going to look a little different. Maybe some of that stuff can remain and be just maintain the character of the tree. But this is that area where I felt had to be opened up and given more space around those trees. Tree 52, it was kind of being sandwiched between 2 lots, not enough room, spread the lots out. So this was the conditions of July, I might have said 7th, July 6th. I'm not going to go through it verbatim, but it was it spoke to the language in the PUD, provide a highly sensitive site plan effort that creates a meaningful gathering place and urban node that is respectful to the grand trees and natural surroundings. Endorse that every effort will be made to preserve A and B rated trees. Those were the conditions. So since that time, as I stated, the applicant did go meet with Johns Island groups and others, and they responded in this way. This is the plan that they want to move forward with. So you can see the trees with X's over them. They're the lower quality trees, but you can see that they removed lots, opened up the green space around the trees to be preserved. They had an issue with their entrance. They weren't quite aligned with the apartment entrance, so they shifted that slightly, and straightened out the road along the alley of Live Oak. So this is what they submitted that relates back to that plan. This just gives you an overview of the green space and the openness around some of the trees. And then this is my modified list. They forgot the color tree number 56, I believe it is. That's a save. But again, it's still at 10 trees requiring a variance, 5 requiring special exception. And so the new staff recommendation updated is must preserve tree number 56 as shown, and I can go back to look at that. Must continue to work with staff to shift utilities and pavement to avoid the tree protection zone of the adjacent grand tree. Must use both 4-foot chain link fence and the non-trench fence tree protection barricade. That's for the interior trees. This is something that we're using on sites to prevent the way they stockpile soil on the site during construction. You get a big rain, it washes dirt into the protection zone. So the non-trench silt fence prevents that silt from getting into the tree save area. The perimeter of the tree save areas and the HOA lots, the green areas, I am requiring that they're totally barricaded, not just the tree, but the entire green area as shown on the exhibit, and that all vegetation to be removed inside the tree area must be approved by the city. So there may be some dead snags in those larger areas that we'll have to go in and select will be approved for removal, and all that works to be done by hand. The existing grades within the tree save areas must remain at grade, and positive drainage must be maintained and or provided. 6, must have a certified arborist develop a pre, during, and post-construction treatment plan. This is a tree preservation plan for the grand tree and non-grand trees to be preserved in the tree save areas and on HOA lots as shown on the revised layout plan. And then finally, must plant 378 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 151 2.5-inch caliber trees, and that no upsizing of the required street trees could be counted toward mitigation.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go back to this. You have a little packet in front of you. It shows the old plan, the original plan, and then the new plan. And I will turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present?
Good evening. My name is Nicole Scott. I'm with Nexon Pruitt, 205 King Street here in Charleston. I'm going to be very brief. First, I'll thank Eric for looking at our revised site plan and our revised proposal, because we did get it to him rather on the late side. So I appreciate him looking at that and giving us comments back on it fairly quickly. And we are in agreement with what he is recommending and would ask that you all approve that. I do have with me on my entire development team, so I've got the developer, I've got an arborist, and I've got our engineer here. If there are any questions about any specific tree or the site plan that can be answered for y'all, they're happy to do it. And just thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I think for me,
Oh.
since, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I already mentioned the comments earlier on, right? So that's where the comments come in, this application and the following application. So you've got them sent to you.
Yes. I think for me, since plan changed, if I could get the applicant and maybe in conjunction with Eric to just go over each tree that is being removed. Let us see the slide of the tree. That might be a positive thing. Is
Tree to be
that right?
removed.
Each tree, like tree 23, I can see where it's located on the plan. I can see it's a D grade tree, and then see what the form of that tree really is.
Okay.
You can make notes as necessary. There's only 15.
If you call out the number,
and then-
I'll go to it.
And then on here, it's not distinguishing, at least that I can see, which is the variance and which are the special exceptions, because that's important as well.
Yes, I did not note that. But we can visit that tree if you wish.
Is everybody on board with, I'm gonna go through the first tree that I
Are
see.
you saying the 17 trees in the original request or the 10 that Eric was talking about, the grants?
I guess that's, I'd like to listen, there's 10 variants and 5 special exceptions. 15 total trees to be removed.
Right, originally it was 17
Or
before.
17. I'd like to go through and just see, the slide for tree 23.
There it is. 23 is a 35 live inch, a 35 inch live oak, grade D. You can see the broke out leaders in the base and the K.
And then it looks like on this, the next tree would be 23 right here. All right, so then the next one on my list, it looks like is tree 27, which is 28 inch Morellos.
Okay.
Let's see. Here's 27, it's on the back. So there's our tree 27.
That tree I can speak to. They were going to, in the original plan, you'll note that they were going to bow the road around that tree. With the lean and you can see that the lower trunk has some issues. We suggested straightening out the road by the LA. And your arborist is here if you have any specific questions to ask him.
Okay. Go, and I don't want to go, if anybody needs me to slow up because you got other things you want to look at, let me know. I'm just going to go through this list. And then the next tree looks like it is tree 31, which is a 25 inch water oak. I'll read that this corner. So I asked Chris, the water oak, if you just tell us why is it D for it to be removed? Looking at its location, possibly safe.
Yeah, introduce myself. I'm Matt Walton, Minister of Forestry, certified arborist, registered forester, certified forester. Tree 31 has signs of stem rot. It also has leaking stem knots along the sign, which is a sign of stem rot in the bole of the tree. You've got water collecting coming out through the main stem of the tree.
And because of that, the tree ultimately is going to fail.
Correct. It's rot in the inside of that tree. It may persist for some time, but it has structural deficiencies. And when you look at it from a tree risk assessment, those trees are, what this area will be in the future as far as homes. You have to think about what are the potential targets there, people, houses, and others.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions?
No, I just want to clarify that it's proximity to structure and then also circulation on the roadway and also sidewalk is what we're looking at when we look at tree risk assessment. If it was in the middle of a field without anyone having potential contact with the area in which it would likely fall, then it would have a very low risk assessment. But putting it in context with what would be around it, especially with it being a water oak, it likely won't survive much longer anyway.
Thank you. I guess the next one is tree 34. Should be a 24.7 inch water oak, D grade. That's the one by the street, I think. No, that's 35.
I thought I had these in order.
34 is the one right by the entry. And I'm not going to go over the F grade trees, as they do not require our approval for removal, so that's why I'm not I think that's great to have. Am I going to bring up an initiative review?
34, I think it's a good idea to remove that one so that the lawn for tree 36 can be larger. If we were to say 34 needs to be kept, like if we were to find the photos and say, you know, we could keep that one, then you would likely need to reroute this closer to 36, and 36 definitely would be worth preserving with as much space around it as possible.
I might have gotten 34 out of order. I'm not finding it right away here. There's
35, I think, is the one that we followed, which is a
there's 30.
double trunk, 25, 26 inch live oak green and tea.
Yep, there's 35.
All right, so then I'll just ask on each one, we bring it up, if you would just tell us what your assessment was, because I don't see it
Okay,
right here.
all right. Tree 35 is a 25, 26 live oak, grade peak. You have crown dieback. You have stem rot and broken crown. That tree had suffered probably Hurricane Matthew had a lot of breakage in that tree, and there's quite a bit of crown dieback. Already, you know, as Eric said, live oaks are tough. This one's kind of on its last legs, unfortunately.
Also on this slope. Down slope and
But
footpath.
correct, and Jennifer, any input on,
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm trying to locate that
it's,
tree.
if you look at the
Pond
pond.
1, bottom of pond
It's
1.
on down the slope.
Oh,
of the
okay.
road.
So the numbering went up around this way, and it's gonna pick up on the left side.
Where's the stem rot located?
I don't have the photo of the front.
That's the base, that's the crown.
Yeah, if you go, Eric, you go back, you've got stem rot coming in through the base of this tree. These are all connected stems going into the main stem of the tree. We also have, as you know, photographing trees is really hard to show all the defects, but there are other places in this tree where you had branch rot that didn't compartmentalize and building down into the main stem of the tree.
Did you see any evident fruiting bodies for that tree?
There were several fruiting bodies in and around all the dead branches on the tree now.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to identify what they were?
I did not key out the species.
Okay. I'm just curious because some of them, once you see the fruiting bodies, just to clarify for everybody, some of these fruiting bodies, once you see that, then that's evident of the rot, and some of the species of those, once it gets started, you cannot stop it. Okay, thank you.
Well,
No.
All right, so then our next tree will be number 38, which is a 42 inch live oak at 8 grade as well. 38 is going to be located on the left side.
As well as the right.
Yeah.
Both slides are 38.
Oh, on the plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's on the left side there, and then lots 68, 69. This one's been. Anyway, go ahead and if you would give us the assessment that.
you have stem rot, branch rot, and as Eric mentioned, this site it was used in the past for agriculture or some kind of forestry. Overall tree health on the site, as a general species, these trees are not in great condition. You see, this has you see the dead stem where it's been pruned back. You've got rot coming around, and you categorize it. You probably on the main stem of the tree, you're probably in the 30 to 40% dead surface on the main pole of the tree at root collar, and then again it has a straight upright growth form as it was competing for sunlight. So you have all the lower branches and died of itself.
After each of these, Jennifer, I'm just gonna fall back to you.
Okay.
Just kind of let me know.
Seeing that that's a 42-inch live oak, I want it to be beautiful so we can save it, and the form is really poor.
Just clarify, you count that black dog truck is probably 42. Is that above breast height?
I wish there was a way to separate that so that, you know, and help lateral growth and do all those things, but it's just not possible at this point in the life of the tree.
All right, so then our next one would be tree 40, which is a 27-inch live oak, grade D as well. And that's in lot 67 on the
You have stem and branch rot, you have poor crown shape again, a result of either the past management of the site, wherever it was used for. Again, the tree is competing for sunlight, so again, it has a just straight up growth form, not the classic live oak that we'd all like to see. And you can see past stem rot or branch rot is into the main bulb of the tree.
Excellent.
I know you're asking for my comment. I think it speaks for itself. A cool tree to find in the woods, but yeah.
All right, we'll move down our list to 40. I think it's 44.
Before again, you have stem rot, branch rot, and upright crown on this tree. You have lots of fruiting bodies along the stem of the tree. It's a result of the past management of the site, whether it was used for agricultural forestry. All these trees have grown up in competition.
Pretty good. Okay, we'll move on to tree 53. It's going to be 53 through 59 are our last ones, all D grade trees. Double butter oak. Our next one is 1721.
I believe tree 50 is next. Tree 50.
Oh, I did this one. Thank you, Eric.
Again, stem and branch rot and an upright growth form, but also they have past storm damage and also a lot of competing vines.
Is the tree safe area trying to modify the road? Or take away from the tree safe area?
Yes. Yes, that's a good point, Amanda. Can we see 56?
Oh, it's coming. You want to see it right now?
I think it'd be helpful in context with this tree because by taking this tree out, we're able to provide 56 with a good life.
That was part of my recommendation to open up that. This is 56. Nope, this was one that wasn't surveyed originally, maybe. But again, my thinking in this green space is that all the non-grand trees are preserved in there, and collectively they're functioning as and we can do reduce risk reduction pruning, what have you. But is a great deed, but I think, again, being a live oak, that's my thought on it.
They're incredible compartmentalizers. And it looks like that wound, although sizable, is worth looking at as far as how it's compartmentalized. And if that needs removal, it will certainly be okay. That 1 liter
Oh, right.
on the right. But an interesting cluster.
Well, that provides habitat, even if in some decline.
So your next one would be tree 53, not to speed you along.
Yes.
That's on the far left of the site.
Again, this is a split stem, water oak. Has stress cracks already in epicormic branching. And epicormic branching, if you're familiar with tree biology, and all trees have dormant buds in the main bulb of the stem. They are released when the tree's under stress. And a lot of times in water oaks, when you start seeing epicormic branching, that's a sign that you have major stem rot in those trees.
All right. Okay.
Agree.
Okay. We go to 54.
Again, another water oak, stem rot, and you have epicormic branching. You also can see some weeping here at the branch near the main stem.
Agree.
Again, a water oak, you see signs of stem rot, stem knots, and you also see cracking in the bark along the main stem of the tree. All signs that you have stem rot in this tree. Unfortunately, water oaks are poor quality oaks, and after they get to about H, or a certain 12 inches in diameter, you really start to see a lot of decay in these trees. Typically, those in the trees, as soon as we get any kind of a wind event, those nuts are breaking.
All right.
57.
Again, you have stem and branch rot, and
You can also see where the bark itself is falling off. If it were a live oak, I think it could probably withstand a few more years, but a laurel oak is a weaker oak.
All right. So then our next one, 58.
again, live oak, the stem rot, branch rot, upright root. Most of these trees pretty much look alike as far as the overall structure. And again, it's just a result of how they were managed, how the site is, fully canopy, competing with the trees around it, and also the vine growth in the tree, plus past hurricane damage.
Some cool
And after our
driftwood looking pieces
last
there.
one, 59, correct?
59 is your last one, yes.
Again, live oak, it's a split stem, the stem rot and branch rot, and the stem rot is at the split in the codominant stems.
Okay.
Can we see number 23 again?
Number 23.
Yes, please.
Point three, it's a multi-stem tree with a dead adjoining stems, and it's also adjoining water oak at root column.
What direction are we looking at? So if we're looking at the plan, because there's some trees that form a canopy next to that. Just looking at this, so here's that tree, and then there's some being saved right in here.
And which side of this tree is adjacent to the lot? Which side is closest to lot number?
Where, right, so if we're looking at a plan, where is this dead stem facing?
The dead stem, Ron, if you're looking on the map, it would be coming from the south, going to the northeast.
Okay, so it would be this quadrant of the tree?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I find this tree interesting. And I'm not sure what to think about removing it.
Since the damaged side is away from the lot,
Well, the damaged side,
or it's going to the northeast, is my understanding. Rather than retaining.
the damage is right here. This quadrant.
Correct.
This quadrant here. The problem I see is more likely that water oak. If you were to try to remove that water oak, then there's an issue of stabilization of roots. Would you agree?
Correct.
Do you see a problem with removing that one stem for the health and longevity of the tree overall?
I think overall, the quality of the tree is so degraded to the point now that you could do some work to the tree, but long term, I mean, it goes back to one of the earlier presentations, you just slowly watch that tree degrade and fall apart.
Thank you. You've heard the joke that if you get 2 or 3 arborists in one tree, check in tomorrow morning, they're still talking.
Correct.
So we're going to try not to do that for the sake of you guys. I think based on what I'm seeing and what he's seeing, that to give this tree a chance, we would have to do away also with this lot, and then it's also kind of a toss-up. So just for you guys to consider.
Tree 23, lot 9 is
Mm-hmm.
the one they're talking about, so.
Would you agree? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything you could do to save that tree and be a healthy tree, and be something that everybody would be proud of, be an asset to the community.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so are there any other questions of the applicant right now? I think we kind of jumped a little bit there. All right, then. Anybody else on the team or in favor of the application that wants to be heard?
Thank you.
And just by a show of hands, those that are present that are opposed to the application. So we will move to those that are opposed, and if you would keep your comments brief. And if they're repetitive, just kind of acknowledge that so we don't just hear the same thing over and over. But we'll start on the far left here.
Well, I think you should mention that we did receive the
Eric mentioned that
comments
we,
in advance, and most, I
Yes.
believe most of us read them all.
state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Joanna Travis. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I live on Johns Island in Shoreline Farms. I have been a practicing pharmacist since 2013. I have a whole speech for this one, but having listened, I appreciate, especially Jennifer, this is my first time here, it sounds like you're very familiar with the trees. So the only thing I would say is if we can save a couple of these trees, especially 23, if I wouldn't cry about losing a lot, to be honest. I think it would also give the people living in that area more green space. It wouldn't feel so cookie cutter. You're living 2 inches from your neighbor. So I think the development could benefit from losing a couple lots while we preserve our trees. I'll discuss more about the trees in the next parts we're talking about. But if we can save even a couple of these with a little extra love and attention, I think it would do our community as a whole great, and it would even help development. I understand that some of these are damaged beyond repair. I wouldn't mind hearing from another arborist who isn't on, forgive me, the developer's payroll, to see what their thoughts are. And that is what I hope you'll consider, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you.
Could you say your name again, please?
Joanna Travis.
Thank you.
Next, sir, you in the front. Did you want to speak? Yes.
No, the next.
Oh, okay. Next hand up that would like to speak. All right, so we're just going to do front row, and then we'll just kind of work our way back on that.
Good evening. My name is Betsy LaForce. I'm with the Coastal Conservation League. Just wanted to reiterate our appreciation first and foremost to the board for the motion at the last meeting, giving the community a chance to meet with the developers and scrutinize these applications. As we've seen tonight, there's a lot of rightful concerns around the removal of such a large number of grand trees on Johns Island. We certainly understand the challenges of developing a forested lot. There's so many varying levels of health, the different quality of trees here. It's been mentioned several times that even if there is a slight degradation in the grade or quality of the tree, it still provides numerous other benefits, including habitat, green space. We've seen a lot of improvements from the development team, and that was great to hear today. It was news to us coming into this meeting, so I think a lot of the comments that you'll see in your packet, including the ones I submitted, reflected the application that was posted last week. So just wanted to clarify and say that we are in favor of the staff recommendation and look forward to continuing to hear from the community thoughts and ideas of how we can continue to scrutinize and perhaps save a couple of additional trees to, at the end of the day, enhance the quality of the development. It'll be exciting to see these built out. And this really is an example of this process at work, which I think a lot of us here, it's encouraging to see you all scrutinize so closely all the details of the application, see the developers go back to the drawing board, scrutinize how they can rework the design. And so just thanks to everyone who's been involved and looking at this so closely, and looking forward to a positive outcome here for Johns Island. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Apostle Millicent Trey Middleton here. I'm from Wamla Island, but I'm an activist on the Sea Islands and the co-owner of Tree Mates USA. You'll hear more about that in the near future. So my concern is these grand oak trees, given that some of them may be a little bent out of shape, but a lot of these trees drinks up the water that's on our island. And even with this section of the meeting and the next one that's coming. It's going to really make it hard for the local community who lives on the island, who can't afford to upkeep their property when the water start coming in. Because when you get rid of that much trees, even though it might not seem like much, those water is going to travel in another direction. And now you're talking health issues with mold, mildew, and any other thing that can affect the material of the home. All I'm asking is if the tree can be saved, if it's in a spot that's not unsafe for those who are for what you're building there, please save these trees. We've lost so much trees, and the water is doing its own thing. You might not see it now, but it's going to be a whole lot worse in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. I will start, go back that way, so.
My name is James Bishop. I live on Jones Island. And I would like to just point out that I don't think that any of these developments have considered the carbon footprint that they remove from the landscape, and the negative impact that all these developments have should be taken not piecemeal, but as a whole. The other thing I'd like to say is that a lot of these trees that look either deformed or not a perfect tree are excellent wildlife habitat, and they provide food and shelter for wildlife. And it's not just humans that we should be concerned with. Anyway, I just hope that these trees are given a second chance, and that the developers will pay more attention to their development. Because in the end, it's for the people. And profits are temporary, and they're also going out the door somewhere else. We're not seeing the profits where we live. So I just hope that the developers will take more of an ecological approach to their planning. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on that second row from left to right, anybody? All right, man, it's you.
My name is Curtis Shelton, and actually my comment is more of a question. Eric had recommended several trees be saved, and when we were going through the slides, your motivation for save, I didn't see on any of the ones that are being recommended. So is council recommending to remove the trees even though you have recommended saving them?
So no, the trees that I recommended from the July layout are now being saved.
So all the ones that you have notated saved?
Yeah.
They changed the plan.
Yes, they changed their, yes.
Because last I saw, the developer refused to do any.
They did. They modified the plan based off of Eric's previous comments from the meeting before.
Well, a lot of these trees are 100 years old plus. Yes. Having lived in Charleston for a number of years, I know that if a 100-year-old house downtown were to be removed, we wouldn't allow it. I think the same considerations should be given to the trees.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. John Zaloga with the Johns Island Task Force. First of all, I'd like to thank the applicant for modifying the application. It's something we haven't seen until literally this afternoon, so I don't think folks have really had a chance to look at what's in there. But to go along with what was said before, the system works because until about a week or so ago, they basically said they were not going to make any changes. And I think it's because of the community was allowed to voice their opinion, and I think they actually heard it after a while, even though initially they said they were not going to make any changes. So I really compliment them for listening. I agree with what staff's recommendations in terms of saving the trees. And the other conditions that Eric wants to put on it. And I kind of was difficult to hear all the conversations were going on there. But if there's any other trees that you think should be saved, we absolutely think you should include that in the list that Eric has. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else present that wants to speak opposed?
Lisa Peterson, I'm a Johns Island resident. We're really tired of the out-of-town developers who come in and trash our island and actually contribute nothing. They're cutting down the forests. That's going to have a long-term impact. It's a small sea island. I think between the county and the city, they're not very well publicized, these meetings, and all of a sudden we have 4 huge developments going on the corner of Maybank and River. I think if you made a greater effort to hear from the residents, you might find a different story. There's been no road improvements. It's going to be a very dangerous situation. There's 420 units going on between River and Maybank. You have all these apartments that are going in on the corner. You have another development going on the other side. How are these people going to get off the island? What happens when we have no trees? Where's water going to come? Has anybody coordinated efforts between county and cities? Johns Island residents are very upset.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else present that would like to be heard in opposition? And then we'll go back to the applicant. You're allowed to speak for a short while.
Thank you for this time. I'll again be very brief. I'd just like to point out that we did take the comments that Eric provided very seriously and gave them a lot of thoughtful attention and detail and examination of what we had requested originally to be removed, and reevaluated those trees that Eric had mentioned, suggested be saved, and we've done that. We've got a great arborist on our team who's very, very knowledgeable about trees, and has done a lot of work with the conservancy groups. And so I know that his recommendation to remove a tree does not come lightly. I think it's important to keep in mind that there's a great deal of mitigation should this conditional approval be approved. The recommendation be approved. There's a significant amount of mitigation that's involved that will replace these trees that are being removed. And one of the things I learned from Mac during my conversations with him over time, and he referenced the I would call it forest management, I know that's not the word we use, but tree management that may or may not have occurred on this lot. Trees are not always better trees when it comes to flooding and water retention. Unhealthy trees, damaged trees can actually impede water flow and water retention. And I do believe that with the mitigation that is being required, in accordance with the stormwater requirements that we've been working on with the city, and that obviously the city is very, very concerned about stormwater, that any water issues and drainage issues will not be negatively affected by these the removal of these trees. So I just ask that we're in complete agreement with Eric's recommendation, including his conditions, and we would ask that you go along with it.
I have a question for you before you leave there.
Okay.
How many lots did you start out with before making the changes?
79.
And how many lots do you have today?
7.
And what are the size of the lots approximately?
I'm gonna have to turn that over to our technical.
Thank you.
Or just correct me if I'm wrong, you added a lot, I think, after, I think it says 71.
Yes, there are 71.
Can we put the picture of the
Site plan back up, master plan back
Excuse
up.
me?
Can you put this image back up? of the
Yes.
plan?
Yes.
Any other questions right now for the applicant or?
I'm okay with saying it. But they might have some more.
So this, the July exhibit, my recollection, 75 lots. 75. And this shows 71.
We were counting the ones that were lost for stormwater, in that original figure.
All right, then this time we're going to go ahead and close the application to the public. So yes, it's technically yes, Mr. Turner, because there was a call for opposition and then a rebuttal. So now I'll go over to the board for discussion, and I will just start and say that I think that I agree that the process has shown that it can't work, that there is communication between developers, city, and residents, and that it can produce good master planning and community planning. I think that the applicant did a very nice job of putting the trees in categories, providing photos and technical information that you can see why it can be somewhat misleading when there is an application post that says 17 trees to be removed, and you don't actually see what we see if you're not at the meeting of why it's being approved to be removed. That said, I do want to point out that mitigation for the live oak trees is inch per inch. So if he's taking out 200 inches of live oak that are D-grade trees, poorly formed, have issues with rot and other things, those are being replaced with 200 inches of tree that will grow and continue to drink up that same water over time. So that is it's not just the trees are gone and they're not put back. I do think that I would say similar to the thought of Eric's over by lot 55 and 56, where it was, hey, I think we can keep tree 56 if it's in this larger area and has the other canopy trees with it. Maybe that's how we look at tree 23 and save that one as well. So.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. So just to kind of speak towards that amendment, I want to look at the area of lots 1 through 9, and this tree here, 36, this tree here, 23, and also 24. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to ask them to lose one more lot, to shift the lots, kind of center them within this to give, so the edge would be somewhere in here and the other edge somewhere in here, and have 8 homes instead of 9, so that we have more room for this cluster and more room for this beautiful tree. Just a thought.
I agree with being inspiring.
I think that's a good idea, and I think, for the public looking at this map, the great majority of the trees for removal right now are either in the roadways or they're in the middle, truly in the middle of the lot. And they've made, I think, a good effort in saving them, and safety is a big question, when you're doing a development. If it's not a multi-acre wild park, and we have to be careful. We have to make sure that the public isn't potentially injured by the trees that remain. So
The discovery of the stem and branch rot, and also these fruiting bodies, are absolutely paramount when we're looking at, the health of the tree and how long it's likely to survive. Not just development around it, but anything long-term. They are from, not today, but prior to today, in a state of decline.
Any other questions for applicant?
I have a question for the applicant. The lot lines we're seeing here, this is the maximum developable area of the different types of homes that we have on these lots, is that correct?
Yes.
So as an alternative to losing on lots 1 through 9, could we potentially put restrictions on the building, the building size in relation to the distance from the tree save area?
You said losing lots?
Instead of losing lot in 1 through 9, if we could put restrictions on lot 1 and lot 9.
Losing lot 1 and 9?
No, not losing that. Restricting the type of home that you would build on 1 or 9. So that the
What I was just talking about was instead of lots 1 through 9, it would become lot 1 through 8 in that cluster.
I confused by the cluster.
And so she was asking, okay, and shifting everything over a little bit so it's centered in that. Fantastic. I think so too.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? Comments or questions of staff? If not, is there
I think it's important, I think it's important for people to know that, a landscape plan will be done and brought to the city through the process that shows where all the replacement trees will be. And Eric and staff have to approve that to ensure the best planting plan.
I certainly think that having the slide up with the conditions for an approval is important after being able to view the trees, the locations, development that's planned, what's going to be saved. There are 43 grand trees that are remaining on the property not being impacted with saving. This other one, there's 44 now. And there will be 378 caliber inches of additional tree introduced into that. So, into this community. So, if there are any other questions, maybe there's a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, if I may. I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with staff recommendations with the addition of reducing the cluster of lots 1 through 9 to 1 through 8 and shifting that grouping to center of their current location to provide more room for trees 36, 23, and 24. And also to save tree 23.
Is there a discussion on the motion or is there a second to the motion? Second. All right. Motion for approval from Jennifer, seconded by Kelvin. Go ahead and take the call. All in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
All those opposed? That one is approved. Thank you.
About recess. I think it was really good that you have that question. Because it also points out that within Delaware losing one national problem, just one
Thanks, Scott.
All right, so we gotta go to still 8-4. Yes. You want a break? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna, if it's all right, it's not right, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna take a 5-10 minute break here. Get 35 seconds.
35 seconds, that's fine.
Who's asking?
90 seconds. Yeah, I read it.
I get that right at the end of the day, it was 14. That's correct. Okay, yes, okay. So 71, 14, 71, or so reducible. 14,
So, I was, oh, no, I wasn't here in July because that's when I had tore all the ligaments in my foot and fell down the stairs. Yep.
Well done.
Yes, I think that was a really good compromise.
I'll be right back. Okay, they're going to a break right now, so I will be back and save the battery. Okay? No, it's like that. They say this last, they know they're going to have a lot of time.
Yeah. Very, very nice to be here. I saw that clip. I was thinking about
There we go, please. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Judy is part, she's the creator.
I was downtown.
They're trying to get all the spaces.
My wife and I were downtown.
Now they're
Parked his headquarters.
or they're trying to do, so you just have a meeting with us.
We were almost back.
I don't know if you guys can see me,
We ended up,
email
I ended up
address.
flagging down.
It's USA. I want to say it's I don't know, so.
She's okay, she's got a big gap.
Absolutely.
Black eye.
For Judy, it's probably no better.
Now she's got some eyes.
She worked from home. The last time we was we met at that little squad.
I asked because I noticed that it's the same book that I've been reading off for the last 10 years. So I don't think change was made. No, we didn't have to vote. Next meeting.
It's more
His house is not.
No, I did walk up there last week.
128 trees.
Excuse me, when they issue these permits for development, do they ever consider traffic?
Yes.
salads and that.
And why do they issue the permits that if we consider that? I mean, the traffic out of John's Island now is so bad. When I go, when I leave.
Contact our Department of Traffic. Never knew about traffic.
It's too late. I mean, they're gonna issue this, they're gonna build houses next to it. On River Road, the structure just can't take it. So you guys seem to be failing in your job to make this an attractive place to live.
Well, there's a plan in place. City council.
But the plan,
Heard about it until the next day. All those issues.
Yeah.
Well, except for your wife, just careful.
it's pretty short-sighted as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if a hurricane comes
the traffic is such, it'll take days to get off Jones Island. And you got all the Kiowa and Seabrook traffic. It all feeds into two roads. And I'm 100% against the 526 because it's just gonna encourage more development. You know? I mean, you say yes to everybody?
No.
I mean, you're nodding your head, yes, like, you understand, but you. I think the plan needs to be changed.
There was, we just went through our comprehensive plan, hope you attended some of those sessions.
Yeah.
Did you attend some of the sessions?
Well, anyway, it's disturbing to see the degradation of Johns Island in this piecemeal fashion.
So that's a long because that's
Okay, we're good. All right. Folks, we're going to get back at it. John? Sorry, we're going to get back at it.
All right, so our final item on the agenda today is Plow Ground Road and River Road. The TMS numbers are 316-00-00034, 036 through 045, and 057, Zone PUD. A request of variance from Section 54-327 to allow the removal of 43 grand trees. A request of special exception from Section 54-327 to allow the removal of 128 grand trees. It'll be up to you now, Eric.
Very good, Mr. Chairman. I will amend those numbers once I get through the presentation. This is the application again submitted in June. It was on the July meeting agenda, but the applicant deferred from that meeting. Again, with learned knowledge that they should go speak to the Johns Island groups as well as the Coastal Conservation League. This is their explanation on the variance test. This property is over 450 acres in size combined. Zone PUD. So it has frontage on Plow Ground Road and a small frontage on River Road, as you see there in purple. Totally wooded site. We'll get into the amounts of freshwater wetlands present on the site and the mix of pine and hardwoods. I threw this exhibit in because this is the planned unit development that was approved by City Council May 14th of 2013. I just threw this in because please note that the PUD does require connection to Plow Ground Road as well as River Road, and then a future connection to Plan West, if you will. There's some right-of-ways there that are unimproved, but we do plan 5, 10, 15 years out, and there could potentially be a improved connection to the west. So on this track, there's over 1,000 grand trees. They hired a consulting arborist to go out and evaluate the size of the tree, the species of the tree, and then again provide a grade for the tree, so you can see how densely populated the property is. It starts to ease up as you move south. I, again, do not know the history of the land, but I suspect that there was some timber management that occurred outside of wetland areas, and that's where you see the thinning of the trees, and then the species changes dramatically. Most of those orange trees that you see there are water oaks versus the blue trees being live oak and red oak, and they're natives. This is sliding a little bit to the east. Again, it's been thinned in my opinion, and water oaks. Again, is moving toward River Road, and then of course the connection to River Road. This is an overall layout. This exhibit is the one that was originally submitted. So this has some trees marked with X's, but have since been removed through discussions with the city and efforts to do better tree preservation. So you can see the wetland system, the pinch point that I call it the pinch point, where the road has to kind of sneak through Plan West to make a connection with Plow Ground Road. And then, of course, the meandering road out to River. So early on, there were a lot more lots on this double-sided road connecting to Plow Ground Road. They were trying to create lots with some varied in size with live oaks and grand trees present, but at the suggestion of the city, they eliminated those, and now you have like kind of reminds me of the missing tooth scenario there, where you got maybe 3 or 4 homes and then a large gap and another series of homes, and those gaps are where trees are being preserved, proposed to be preserved. So the pink, again, this is the old plan that was submitted, and in the last week or so, there's been a lot of developments, probably more than a couple weeks, but I'm extremely busy, and it's you know, we would want to try and update the link that we post a week ahead of the meeting, but to not confuse people, I just left the original in, and then I chose to discuss the changes here at the meeting. So moving in Plan South. Heading east. So this is the spreadsheet, if you will, of each tree proposed to be removed. Its size, its characteristics, its notes from the consulting arborist. And what the applicant has done is pretty snazzy. We can go in, I have a jump drive loaded here. We can go in and click on not all the trees, but a number of trees, and they've linked a photo to the tree. So for instance, this tree 558 at one point was proposed for removal, and it is classified as a A-grade tree. And they moved the road, and I'll get into that in just a bit. It's from a distance. Tree 59, in order to save the A, they shifted, and this is, I believe, one of maybe 2 on that road that makes a connection to Plow Ground. You can see it's competing with neighboring trees, so the crown arches. You know, it's kind of a one-sided tree and is arching toward the sunlight. This is we're concerned about maintaining the character on River Road. The traffic impact study does require left turn lane improvements, and it's demonstrating where they are planning not to remove trees, a grand tree on the connection to the river. So this is the letter that was submitted where they adjusted the plan based on community input as well as staff communications. So included that. So revised since being advertised and working with staff and conducting the grand trees removed, or the trees required by variance are 3 black gum grade C, 2 black gum grade D, 2 laurel oaks grade C, 2 laurel oak grade Ds, 3 live oak grade Bs, 3 live oak grade Ds, 1 maple grade D, 1 red oak grade C, and 2 red oak grade Ds. Note, 1,119 grand trees on the site, and with this proposed layout, 895 will be preserved. Trees requiring a special exception: 1 red bay grade C, 1 red bay grade D, 8 water oaks, grade C, and 95 water oaks, grade D. Again, 895 trees of the 1,019 to be preserved. So, examples of lots removed for preserved trees on HOA lots. You can see I just kind of zeroed in. There's a grade A tree no longer being squeezed between lots. It's given some space. This is some examples throughout the layout. And then these are the two live oaks, I believe, that were a decent grade, but you can see the property lines, and to get the road out to river, there's not much wiggle room. So since the plan that was advertised, and since the I provided you the tweak in the road alignment in front of you as an 8.5 by 17, but you can see one red X. So we were able to get, they studied even though they're not really in depth with the stormwater management plan, they were able to study this portion of where they would have the curb and gutter, where their inlets would be. So they provided a low point near the grade A tree. Got the stormwater pipe adjusted, put some bends in the road. So the trees are going to be partially impacted, but you'll hear my conditions. So we were able to preserve additional grade B trees in that zone. This is just a quick study of in this particular area for that low point. I'm not a fan of cut, but they're showing that the existing grades, there will be a slight cut, and we'll continue to work with that in that area. So this is the adjusted tree removal spreadsheet. So in summary, we have 469 acres, proposed 430 lots, 1,119 total grand trees, 895 be preserved. The reduction in the advertised number is 124 grand trees to be removed. And of course, 16 F grade trees are amongst the total. Therefore, 19 requiring a variance and 105 requiring a special exception. So, staff recommends approval with the following conditions. Must plant 2,000.25 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 60% of those inches have to be planted on HOA and common areas with a minimum 2.5 inch caliber tree. 40% staff will consider and allow for them to upsize the required street tree if approved by the Parks Department. Must have a certified arborist develop a tree preservation plan for each grand tree within 50 feet of any construction and/or improvement. The tree protection plan will need to address each tree by number, so we'll have to study each tree, understand what's happening around it, and develop a specific protocol for that tree. Must have a certified arborist treat, prune, mulch within trees within 50 feet of any construction. Must use 4-foot chain link fence as tree protection barricades and to be used as perimeter control for the entrance road clearing limits coming off the plow ground up to the south side of the wetland south of the pump station. Now, I can go back and explain that, but it's tight with the trees in between lots. I want that area really tightened up with the required tree protection barricade, not just silt fence. And then must provide a reforestation landscape plan for staff review and approval.
All right, Eric, thank you. Anything else that you need to add?
Nope.
And then is the applicant present?
Good evening, everyone. My
We gave everyone the vice president of land for Lennar here in Charleston. I just wanted to take a second to thank city staff and Eric for all the hard work since our submittal in June. We've been on the way since the initial submittal of the numbers. Obviously getting into alternative solutions to preserve as many trees as possible in this very large, very unique project we have in front of us. As Eric mentioned, Wooddale is a very unique project. I've been developing property for almost 25 years now. I've never seen a project of this size and scale with over 1,000 greenhouse preserved on it. With that said, just want to kind of give a recap of where we came in June and where we are today. I kind of tally my numbers up a little bit differently just by area. But when we first submitted, we came in with our application for 1 grade A, 21 grade B, 22 grade C, and 127 grade D trees. That totaled up to 171 trees as was the original applications. Upon submitting, we quickly engaged with the city and Eric, and under his guidance and recommendation, hit the pause button for the last 5 months. So what have we been doing for the last 5 months? One, we've continued to engage with the city, with Eric, on guidance, anything we can do to tweak the plan, whether it's infrastructure, lot lines, as he had mentioned before, just simply removing lots and trying to find other places to replace them. Relocating infrastructure. We worked with the city actually on the crossing that Eric mentioned, right here where the wetland crossing is a little further down, on getting a single-sided sidewalk in an effort to swoop around that 558 grade A live oak 39.5-inch tree that he showed in the picture earlier. So that not only saved that, but 2 other Bs from the original configuration we had there. In doing so, we also reached out to Coastal Conservation League and had a meeting and had some great conversation, bringing them up to speed on how we whittled this number down from 171 to where it is right now at 124 total trees. Aaron, can you go to the big site plan? We have also had conversation with the CCL and are fully committed to placing conservation easement on the southern property, portion of the property. That would encumber this open space outside of our ponds, all the uplands within this pocket, this area, and then we're also going to place a conservation easement on 9 estate lots that were sectioned off right here from PDD. So exciting things to come there. That conservation easement still has to be papered, and we still have to purchase the property before we could then act upon that. But that is a commitment we have made and we'll make here in front of us. We've also engaged with the Johns Island residents. We met with John and Johns Island Task Force, made a presentation, had lots of questions, a lot of Q&A session there, and then met with the Johns Island Council most recently. And again, just another good Q&A session that started off as trees and turned into, as you can imagine, a lot of other questions about the project. But great meeting. Between those meetings and a lot of even just some of the comments I've been reading that have been turned in, a lot of people are focusing on just what can we do to save every A and B is what I saw a lot of comments on. So brings us to where we are today. Again, we are now down to 124 trees that we are requesting to remove. Of that, we are going to save 100% of all grade A trees on this property. Also includes 3 removals of Bs. On a percentage basis, that leaves 99%, actually greater than 99% intact because there was a total of 505 Bs surveyed on the property. And again, those 3 Bs, they are live oaks. And they were referenced in those previous exhibits where we have 2 bottlenecks coming in the community. One off River Road where there's 2 trees that are smacking the only place we can put the road. And at that wetland crossing where we just meandered it to avoid a grade A live oak and 2 more Bs. So those represent the 3 B live oaks that we are planning to remove. Again, we have looked with our design team at any way possible
to not affect those three, and it's simply off River Road. We almost have 50 feet between property line and property line, and that really skinny part of our parcel, and that's where they sit. So we have a 50-foot right of way and a street section going right in the middle of those two trees. And again, the 1B up by that wetland bottleneck is kind of the best path forward because again, we're able to save a grade A and 2 Bs. We are now down to 15 Cs, which represents saving 93% of all Cs surveyed on the property. And we are proposing 106 Ds. The majority of those are water oaks. That represents saving 61% of the D quality trees off the property. With that being said, Eric did touch on the reforestation requirements that we are in full support of. We have proposed to plant 296 hardwood 4-inch trees within the common areas, ponds, pond banks, wherever we can get them. It's a lot of trees, honestly, to find space for. And then also upsizing 527 of our street trees to give kind of an instant pop to the aesthetic of the streetscape of the community. And the requirement's 2.5, and we're going to put them up to 4-inch. So that'll be a nice little increase to the size and scale of the streetscape of the community around. That being said, we are here for Q&A and any other questions we might have.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else from your team that wants to be heard at this time? No. Okay, then it's going to go to anybody present that is opposed. All right, we'll start with you right there.
I'll sit on the front row.
Yes.
I'm Andrew Gear. I'm a physician. I live on Johns Island, have for about 20-some years. First of all, not blowing too much wind up your skirts. This is the first meeting of site design I've been to, and many of the meetings often, bureaucratic-wise, doesn't seem like the people know as much. You guys have been really great about going into the minuscule aspects of just the fact that you said microenvironment made me really happy. So, and Eric, I want to thank you for sending me that high-res map so I could look at all the trees, and I did go through them all, and I overall, the message I want to get across is this is sort of right on the border of the city of Charleston and Johns Island County and over the urban growth boundary. And so I think it's more important than just the grand trees, what's happening there, because I think what you guys decide here, how this development proceeds, is going to affect future development on Johns Island. So I think you have a bigger task than just looking at, a little decay and a little this or that, because while they may be being responsible as far as the trees go, the density is still high. Even though I know it's approved for the 1 per acre, it's still a large number, and they're matching, and there's as much as I appreciate the wordiness in this variance test explanation, but to say that this is consistent in harmony with the adjacent properties, I mean, that's just not true in that location. You have to go down the road to the other side of the road. And I think we've seen what has happened at Maybank coming off the Stone Bridge. I mean, that's a big deal what's going on in there. And going into this area where next door is homes, there's horse farms in there, there's regular farms in there. This is a dynamic change for this neighborhood. And while I appreciate a profit has to be made, if things do that, just because it allows X number of units per acre doesn't necessarily mean that that's what has to happen. And while the tree may be the stumbling issue, I do feel that the onus is on Lennar to find a way to make this fit better into the community of Johns Island so it looks more like the other areas of Johns Island, which this, well, look right there. This does not. And again, I realize progress is coming and things change, and I'm not opposed to that. But I do think, after all that's been going on, I think there does have to be a line somewhere where the words responsible development takes the stage. And I go down that road every single day, Plow Ground Road, every day. And I know Ms. Middleton, I appreciate Jennifer's comments, but the number of wildlife that I see dead on the side of the road has escalated over the last several years. This is an important wildlife corridor. When you come across River Road from the other side, from the Stono through there, you're interrupting a wildlife corridor. This does not create that passageway through that area that's safe for animals to move. And again, I don't want to be so long-winded, but I do feel like, God, it's so important for you guys to get this one right. I mean, it's right on the edge of Johns Island County and City of Charleston. It's the first development of that kind in that area. It's going to change the dynamics of that area immensely. So please be as thoughtful as you possibly can. And I know it's about the trees, this comment, but hold them to a higher standard. This is really important. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Front row, anybody else want to be heard? All right.
Apostle Millicent Trey Middleton again. And I got to co-sign on what Dr. Gear said. I am concerned at this point about the animals having nowhere to be. They are coming into the highways, they're running to try to find their natural habitat. And it's getting to the point where the animals are not even the only one who have become roadkill. We are too. And even though they did a wonderful thing about eliminating as much trees as they can, and we do appreciate that hard work. But here's the deal. He's coming on to the point where all the developers done take most of the trees. So now it's like we got to try to save as much trees as we can. It's bad enough that we got this heavy construction that's going on the corner of Maybank, near Maybank and River by the food line. That came from, nowhere. I never even heard of that plan. But what I'm begging you is simply what Dr. Gear said. Try to find a way to work around these trees. I have business property on Wamala, and my plan is to build around the trees as much as we can. Because eventually, with all this population, and I have to stress it, the water will find somewhere to go. And then it's going to cause trouble for someone else. The developers, they got to deep pocket to build up their properties so they won't be affected no time soon. But in the near future, it's going to cause the locals who've been there trying to have a decent lifestyle. And that is changing drastically every day. So please consider even moving another tree. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're in the second row. Whoever would like to speak.
Since we've gotten off on wildlife, I've lived on Johns Island for 2.5 years. And between the bridge and where I live down River Road, I live about 1.5 miles down River Road from Maybank toward the airport. I've counted over 35 dead deer on the side of the road just in 2.5 years. So the developments are having an effect on the wildlife. Fortunately, the neighborhood I live in is quite ecologically aware, and we have some vacant lots, and the deer. And formerly we have turkeys. I haven't seen them since April.
Come to Walmart.
What's that?
They're finding a way to go.
Yeah. Anyway, so it would be good if these developments do take wildlife and try to coordinate and develop a wildlife corridor. The other thing I'd like to say is this 2,000 caliber inches of trees to be planted. The specifications are kind of vague on the species, and they should reflect the ratio or the percentages of native vegetation in the area, and that's not easy. I don't think nurseries produce a lot of the native vegetation. Everybody wants crepe myrtles, some of these exotic trash trees, as far as I'm concerned. They have no biological value other than just visually being pleasant. But wildlife food should be taken into account, and a variety for different seasons. That's all.
Thank you.
Joanna Travis again. I am following two long-term residents up. I'm a short-term resident. I've been there about a year and a half now. My husband and I, we moved from Mount Pleasant. Why did we move? We were so tired of the TGI Fridays and the different housing developments and the 4-lane highways. And are we really in Charleston? No, we're not. So we found a beautiful, that's my neighbor actually, and we have seen the turkeys. We found a beautiful neighborhood, 2-acre minimum lots. They've done a phenomenal job saving the trees there. We feel like we're in what Charleston was. And today, driving here, driving on River Road, seeing the live oaks, you feel good. You know you're in the low country. You know you're supporting the environment, and it's us. It's us. I'm not going to talk about the wildlife. I'm going to talk about what Johns Island is. And regarding the 2 live oaks that they would have to remove from the road, I offer you this analogy. You invite Lenore to your house, you're serving them dinner. They say, you know, I see the wall between your kitchen and your living room. I think you should open that up, it's closed. Hold on 1 second. They knock it down. Now you have an open area. They don't clean them themselves. That's what they're about to go do here. They knew what they were getting when they purchased the land. They knew the live oaks, they had a plan, they saw what they were getting into. They are rich, you are. And they know that they can fix it. They should not be going in there and saying, oh, this is the easy thing to fix. We're just gonna knock these 2 oaks down and be done. No, force them to use their creative minds, and you know they have great minds because you've gone back to them and they have twice reduced the numbers of trees that they were gonna tear down, which thank you, that's fantastic. That tells me you can do more, so let's reduce that by more. Clearly they're able to do that. And I did submit some comments, and I will read my last 2 bits because I thought they were pretty snazzy. Additionally, is this resident's opinion that the construction companies knew what they were getting into when they agreed to develop the land. This request reads lazy and uninterested in the island they so desperately want to build on. If they could not handle what was already in place, then they should have purchased elsewhere. It is not for the residents to suffer long-term damage because some multi-million-dollar company wants to make their life easier, walk away later when damage is done. And lastly, River Road is a designated scenic highway. Part of what makes it a scenic highway is the trees that line it. Movies have been filmed here, books inspired, and multiple Netflix series have been developed based on the aesthetic and authenticity that only the current landscape offers. To allow companies with no ties to the island or future of it to take away our soul and a main economic driver is negligent. I appreciate you guys taking the time, hearing me out. I have faith in this council and this board. What they said, this isn't just about some trees down the road from where we live. There is a huge future at stake for Johns Island, and we appreciate you taking the time to think about it as carefully as it deserves.
Thank you. All right, yes, you in the back.
Ms. Peterson, 2 points. I'm also concerned about the animals, but I'm also concerned, the price of our houses have gone sky high. I know you're getting big tax dollars, but you have priced my son out of ever living in the home that he was born in. He can't afford to live in Charleston, he's a college graduate, he's moving away. Also, what is the carbon monoxide impact of the 4,000 cars that you're adding to Maybankin River, and what would the impact be? They'll be traveling, I imagine all these units, have no idea how many units are going in across from Fenwick Hall. What would the impact of that be? As these are single, even the apartments will have 2 cars. What is the impact of 4,000 new cars twice per day and the effect on our environment there? Any idea, any traffic studies, any thought to that?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ron Boyer with the Johns Island Task Force again. Unlike the previous applicant, I'd like to thank these guys because they actually got involved with the community. be for months on end as opposed to the last couple of days. So thank you guys for doing that. We appreciate that. A couple of things. I know we all would wish that this development didn't occur, right? But it's happening. So the question is, how do we make it as good as possible? And so a couple of things. As someone mentioned, they were able to remove fewer trees by putting their pen to the paper. I think we should try to get them to not remove those additional 3 live oaks, the Great B live oaks. I think if they really put the pen to the paper, they could do that. And also, what was also mentioned about the type of trees that are going to be replaced. I agree. It would be fantastic if the requirement was that a large percentage of those trees be live oak trees. That's pretty much the trademark of Johns Island. Replacing them with live oaks, I think, would be a fantastic idea. So those would be the 2 things I'd like to see. If we could get those in, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else present that's opposed that would like to be heard?
Last real quick.
Well, you're on the front row. That row's done.
I'll get through. I feel force again with the Coastal Conservation League. Just wanted to wrap up the comments. Again, thank the development team, as we heard, for making a true effort to meet with the community in multiple groups on more than one occasion since the last decision at the initial submittal. As we've heard mentioned by the doctor, and it's a really important point here, this is in the city of Charleston, but outside of the urban growth boundary. So a really important opportunity to be thoughtful and get this right as we're thinking about developing Johns Island, using the principles of the Dutch dialogues that was approved. In the city, we're about to see a lot of changes coming down the pipeline with the way we develop, where we develop. We're seeing some of that on this property, clustering the development, maintaining a lot of open space, putting the development on the high ground. Those are all good things, thoughtful things. And just to echo everyone's comments, I think we would add on to the request that the remaining healthy Great B trees add on a condition to be saved. I think with that, tying this up in a bow would truly be an example to point to of, again, a successful bee process at work, listening, compromising, going back to the table, re-scrutinizing the development to have it be a true compromise. So thank you all for your time and consideration of everyone.
Thank you. All right, last call for opposed. And back to the applicant to address things that you heard.
Just quickly on the wildlife concerns, I did state earlier, but we'll just expand upon it a little bit further. The conservation easement we are committing to putting in place is kind of the first puzzle piece of what some private philanthropists on the island and working at the CCL is the first puzzle piece of what could be an eventual greenway belt specifically for wildlife in this area. So again, it's 50 plus or minus acres that we're going to put a conservation easement on and put it over nine lots that we could build on, but are choosing to put a conservation easement on that then block access to some upland property that's not on our property. So I think we've done a good job at least putting that up and offering that up in terms of concern with wildlife, keeping that green belt, or at least the first kind of step forward on trying to create a little bit of green belt in this area where we jump out of wildlife. Another correction, we do not own the property yet. Just want to clarify that. We are the applicant. We do not own it yet. Third, the list of trees, Eric, I know you probably know this off the top of your head, but John, to your question earlier, live oak, high tower, this list may have changed, but the list of the 296 trees we are going to plant on the property is short, native. The city tells us what we got to plant, so I was concerned about that earlier also. Again, right here, Q&A.
Okay, so that will end the public portion of the meeting, and stay there because I'm going to ask a question.
Yep.
So now it's up to the board open to the board for discussion and questions. And so the 3B grade trees.
Yep.
I thought that what I had heard was the access into the property was established, and those trees are where the access is, and it's only 50 feet wide.
We have 2 exhibits specifically because we knew the bees were going to be a great focus for us to talk about.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a better glow than that. there, but let me grab something. Maybe if you could do the overall, Eric, we can kind of point to where these are in the world, but pull this up for everybody. So,
River, this is an access point. We only have 2 access points. To Eric's point, a previous future potential connection that can be made if that right of way is acquired. That's county property right there. One off plow ground, one off river. Our property line literally necks down to about 50 feet. Property line to property line.
so those red lines are our property lines, and unfortunately, those trees are right at the very skinny spot. And we are required to have 2 access points for 5.
And then the other is in our pinch point right here between what is going to be a wetland crossing. Again, if we shift one way, we actually take out more trees. If we shift the other way, we actually push against the property line. And so the option that actually takes out more trees also takes out more wetlands to be permanently filled for that crossing. So we picked the path of least resistance here. And I honestly, we're problem solvers by nature. These are 3 trees. I'm not able to solve this problem. They are purely road connections that one comes in for mainly our private or primary access property.
So that A-grade tree that Eric was showing earlier is right here. And we pushed the road essentially to the far side here. We kind of, this is not our, this is all that one over here. As I hope everybody can kind of see there, if we push to the other side, we're taking out, ending up with more trees over there. So we really think that this is the best solution for getting through that wetland crossing and also providing 2 fire access as we're required to.
All right, so then, just so that I'm clear, so we have about 469 acres, and you have 469 homes planned, 1 per acre.
We're 30.
430.
And again, we're going to take 9 and put a conservation easement mode so that we can.
All right. And I think that it's a massive piece of property, 469 acres. I got to put it into the smaller unit, so I always put things into the square foot. And 43,560 square feet in every acre. That means that we are discussing 20,429,640 square feet of land. And on that, we are looking at 124 total trees to be removed. I think that's extremely well done, well planned. And if you look at that overall site plan, you can see the enormous amounts of property that are not being reserved.
It comes out to about 2 trees per acre.
So
I did the quick percentage math again. I'm just math oriented, but except for the calculation we did a second ago.
I did that.
Fenwick, I think, was removing 15, saving 43 for a total of 58 potential on site. It was about 25% being removed, or half of that. So the big aggregate number is a big scary number. We realize that 124 everybody's had. Of that, 106 being grade D, and I think we've shown that we really have tried to whittle down, saving every single A on the property. Only 3 Bs will be removed, and then 15 Cs.
What's the distance of the 2 grade trees from River Road?
That road, I know that road is about 3,500 feet, plus or minus. Just to give you some scale, that I'd be guessing.
I'm going to say 900 feet, but I.
So they're not in the alley.
They're not along the river corridor.
Right.
That's.
Thank you.
So,
There might be able to give you a better answer.
so let me ask the board.
I have a general question, and this is my lack of knowledge. This is south of the urban growth boundary.
There is, and I don't want to get into the history of this tract, but there's history.
Okay, it's because I guess my question was, it's a PUD that was done.
As a result of a court case.
Okay.
And your purchase is contingent on getting approval for what you want to build.
So this typically wouldn't be allowed inside the urban growth boundary if this PUD wasn't already pre-approved. I mean, this is part of the thing for the audience is, you know, we look at such a specific thing that all this work and planning and, you know, zoning and going to the planning commission has already been done. We're kind of for the last.
I can tell you a little bit more of the history because it was annexed into the city of Charleston and zoned to allow more units on the property prior to the urban growth boundary ever being created amongst the city and the county. And so that urban growth boundary was created and located in a way that kept this out of the urban growth area of the city and the county. And then there was a subsequent situation that resulted in the PUD that did drastically reduce the number of units that could be built on the property.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Very good.
And that PUD was based on wetland. I don't know if the wetland delineation was truly flushed out. You know, you have national wetland maps. So if I go back to this, way back here, you can see smaller little WLs and what have you. And then, of course, they move forward and do the true delineations, and you end up with, and they didn't at that time have the tree data.
It took a while to gather that much data.
Imagine. So I'll just ask the board if they think this is a good procedure, but I would like to see, I think, similar to what we did on the last application, but limited to the 15 C grade trees. I understand why the 3 B grade trees would need to be removed. But I don't know what really any of the 15 C grade trees look like. Nor do I know, because I don't have that fine print of the whole chart of every tree coming out. But is it possible for us to target what those are, Eric, and see? And
Yeah,
then,
I think we can, because
I guess the other
I'm gonna,
question is-
my expert left. But we do have, interesting enough, we have, I'll try and maybe, Jason, you can help me.
You can let me know.
Jason can help me, because what we have here is a jump drive, and I have.
Yes, sir, that would be awesome.
So I have to go to new share while we set this up.
So of those 15 C grade trees, how many are variance required versus special exception? Because really, I just want to see the variance required.
Gotcha.
Special exception is a completely different standard.
So we do have pictures of the variance trees, all of the C grade variance trees. We do not have pictures of the special exception trees.
That's fine.
And
So
Tom, who actually did all this, you might need to help me, buddy, as far as finding these.
Well,
really, all of these that are clouded are.
on that chart, doesn't it say the grade of that tree?
It does. So what we have to do is get the number.
I would just look through.
All right, perfect. So he's.
So tree 28 is a C grade. You want to see that one?
I think, I mean, do you think it'd be helpful for us to see the tree, or it'd be helpful for me? But and to see just a picture of this tree.
So let me get my bearings.
What is
here.
the average lot size? Just curious.
Right, the variants are going to be your category 1, category 2 combined. Is that correct? Yes.
So yes. And really, just because some of those C grade trees might be in a location where there are special exception removal versus variance removal. And so that's really what I was trying to get to. I think it was the last application was very helpful to see the tree, hear the assessment on it, and understand why it needed to be removed.
Are you able to zoom in here? It's a little bit difficult to make out the colors, but the yellows are the C grades.
Right.
So if it's got a purple cloud around it, it's yellow, it's a C grade there.
That's right.
I don't know how to, in screen share, get to the next sheet. Do you know how to get to the next sheet?
Last time I did this, I actually had to kind of escape from the full screen thing and then hit like the arrow to jump over the,
All right.
and then go back to the full screen thing.
Okay.
Not sure if that's the most efficient way, but
It works.
Don't get in. Okay. No, you should, you can still screen share.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not interested, just,
have escape.
if you think it would be.
All right, I'm back. But I want to get to the next sheet in the jump drive. There's multiple sheets, so do I have to stop share and then go find it in?
Yeah. Yeah, let you try that.
Stop share here. All right. I gotta go to desktop.
we also have these boards with each one of the sheets. I maybe haven't bought any.
Boards.
Will you buy
I've got two series of PowerPoint and the jump drive.
Eric, if it's easier for you, I was gonna go through, write down all the numbers, and then if you have the jump drive with just the individual pictures,
right?
Those are titled with the tree number, so might be an easier way to.
The problem is I don't know how to move from sheet to sheet in screen share.
I don't think I do either. So you're like, I think it's like F11, just to bring it down from. Wrong, but I know that there's a command, the blue beam, to kind of take it from that full screen view down, and then let you kind of jump between sheets. All right, now I think you can jump. No,
Show you one. See,
I
saw the tree. Oh, I don't miss
just hit up your bar. Yeah, try that again, I guess. Yeah, because it looks like it brought you back. So yeah. Yeah, the screen share there. I think that would bring you to the end, whereas. Yeah, I actually had to get that one.
There we go. Let's go to the street side. So there we go. All right. So, all right. Here we go. I think I got it. If I could zoom in on this, how'd you get that?
This guy. Yours for some reason doesn't like it. It seems to. Oh, it's in there. But you can also kind of zoom in on that. You'll know.
This.
Right on. Have a Merry Christmas.
So, our first, this is a yellow tree right here.
This one, Eric.
Tree 28. All right, here's tree 28. All right, folks, I think I've got it.
right, so he's the one who graded them, is that right? Okay.
The descriptions that we have.
What, Jason?
Jason.
Yes, sir.
Start this up, if you would maybe just let us know that, like, just so everybody can hear that Mike Russell. You got, all the trees, these are certified arborists, and descriptions of, drawings.
Yeah,
We walk into it like, hey, I see some of these stuff on the tree. So that would help for everybody. They do. We just don't know that, we just didn't know the numbers.
This is a live stream. Yes. Okay, guys, this is live stream.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta figure it out.
So everybody can hear.
Okay.
They can show us pictures of the trees electronically.
All right, if y'all could, quiet down over there, we're gonna get back started on our meeting, and Jason, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to point out that we did have an arborist, Mike Russell, grade all of these trees. There's a spreadsheet in the back of our package that breaks them down by grade, and also any defects that were found. Those are coming from an arborist. It wasn't coming from me or anybody at Thompson. We had a certified arborist help us out with all this.
Okay. And so do you have that information that, like, we're looking at tree
328.
And you'd be able to say 328, the arborist said it was poor form, decay, or whatever. So
I can do that.
Okay.
Spreadsheet. We don't have a spreadsheet.
Eric, if it helps, I can take that paper plan from you and read the grades off, so you're not trying to do 14 things at once.
Okay.
Yeah? All right.
Well, we know the grade will all be C.
Yes, yes, but we got the descriptions back here.
Oh, fantastic. And this might be asking a lot, Eric, as well. So the picture, is it covering where tree 28 is?
No.
Oh, so I see tree 28 is just off to the left. Okay. All right. All right. Tree 28. It's all you, Jason.
28, we got a hollow base there is what the arborist report gives us.
And the tree is a water oak?
Laurel.
Laurel oak. And the diameter size was?
28 inch.
28 inch. Okay. All right, and its location right next to the road, proposed road.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's like last time Jennifer kind of
Yeah, I'm ready.
put you on the spot here.
Okay.
It is Richmond Road.
When you're good and ready to move on, we'll hit the next one.
All right. Let me see that 28 again. Sorry.
Oh, you want to see a picture of it?
If it's not too difficult.
And this is hollow base there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so our next tree is. Next one.
They're going to do that to me. Tell me where it is.
Those squares are links to the picture.
Yeah.
It's pretty snazzy.
Mm-hmm.
What's it?
Maybe people who don't know how to do that.
I know.
On the PDF, you hit that little bar. And it's the picture.
That's good.
So what's our next tree?
Well, we got 836. I don't know, Eric, if it's easier to just kind of scroll around the plan and find the, or Tom, if you know exactly where these locations are, and you can point there to them, that would probably be the easiest thing to do.
Can you search and find it? My number?
That would be genius, wouldn't it?
Is this in blue?
Something.
It is a movie.
Give them
If
a-
you click up, it's just gonna say markups. It's not coded with the actual tree number, it's just coded as a markup.
But there's like 15 of them, right? So,
Right.
yeah, if you know how to get to the markups, Eric, that's a good idea. I think that
Here's one here. I do not see a little camera. I guess this is it over here.
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Tree 837. 837.
837. We got a 26-inch. It's a black gum C, and Mike Russell's saying V-shaped crotch.
What kind of tree is it again? I'm sorry, can you draw that again?
Black gum.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
What was that? Did you say it was
I
dead
think
in the
it's
middle of the
right in the middle of the future pond.
Yes, it's in that center block right there.
Double leader in that species is bad.
Okay.
And my comment for the laurel oak is, again, that's a weaker oak. There's
All right,
likely
here's
something
one.
going on in there, maybe even
Here's one. I
something
believe.
in there.
In the last one.
Yeah, that first one.
Oh, you just did the variance picture. The trees requiring a variance.
That's right, not a special.
So there's a C grade water oak, if you look at mine, but he doesn't have a photo of it, but it's a 25.5, a 12, 13.5. See it in the road?
Yep.
Right here.
Because it's a special exception, he didn't photograph.
Right.
He just photographed the
Yeah.
special exceptions.
Variances, so that's there.
And it's in
That's for the live oak, which requires a variance, 790. You like to take a peek at that?
No. Oh, variance, yes.
Okay.
If it was a C grade. D grade.
I think it's a D grade live oak, but
790 is a D. 24-inch live oak. You just noticed decline on that one.
Oh, there's a photo. That's rough.
Right, so that's one of the D grade trees right there.
We did take pictures of a couple of the water oaks, just to provide an example of the typical.
okay. Let's see if I can't find anything on this sheet, anything more.
But on your chart, can't you just look down and see C grade? And tell us what number it is, and then we can.
Yes, and Tom, didn't you just write down the numbers? So if I say 837, for example, you can.
On the sheet.
Right. I don't know.
So we have two. So we have one right here. One might could do that. But I think so these two are
Okay.
either C or.
Okay, I've got another one, guys.
The big, when you see big red X, that's for the variance, so we can show the difference from the special variance.
Okay, tree number 839.
Okay, that is a 26-inch black gum. And arborist is saying hollow base.
It was what type of tree again?
Black gum.
Black gum as well. So, all right, so,
and what we're seeing here, I'm not seeing hollow base, but it could be from the tree.
How many C grade removals are there?
And that's on the edge of road and lot, and then
Extrapolate.
you got another one below it. Do you want to still stay on that one?
that's it. So just those
We've got
15, that's
two-gram
it.
trees.
Okay.
We've
That's all I
got
was
two-gram
thinking
trees,
about. The
but
D
they
grades I
could be
wasn't
the
concerned with.
same. Huge amount of tree space.
But also if we look at live, or like, yes, each one of those is a valid removal that we can move forward. Or, you know, if you're comfortable moving forward, we don't have to hit every single one of them. I do believe that when you're looking at 469 acres, only 59 of them being built on.
Yeah.
Plus roads.
401 acres or 300 plus acres that are not even being impacted. Maybe we're good.
So that's the black gum here. Then I'll move to this one here. That's on a drainage easement lot.
You guys have a number for that?
837.
Okay. So that's
That was 837 was the
Already looked at that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so where else do you have another one on this sheet?
So there's that one.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, yeah, but those,
Yeah,
okay, so that's the only ones of those two.
Okay, so let me reduce the sheet
Size,
size
we
and
can
do
find it. There's just gonna be one on the next item, and it is generally in that, high ground area.
Oh, just kind of. Yeah.
That's fine. They won't need it. This guy's gonna locate your pond right here. Where it's the pond.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah, because, the tree we're able
Up
to.
and over by the
rise
pond.
Yeah.
Which one?
So it's this guy right here.
It's cloud. Okay. All right, we're on the pond. You see the cloud on the pond? And that's tree 966.
Yeah.
So tree 966?
966 is a double, 9 plus 22, total of 31 for oak. And fourth form is the comment from the arborist.
And it's in the pond here.
So that's the only one that she.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
I just moved this. Okay.
So this guy's.
I can't manage that. He's done.
right, yeah, it's
How
getting
much
saved.
is the offset on retention, water retention?
This one.
Versus
The one to the
treatment?
left,
Like, is that
one where the pipes
part
are
of
at.
the calculation?
Sorry.
They do have to,
So it's this
I
one.
couldn't answer that directly.
All right, tree number
Um,
2046.
stormwater as a whole for this project, you know, we're meeting the requirements of the new stormwater manual. And we've had concept plan approval. We have a massive drainage study that goes all the way out to the stone. It was very stringently reviewed by the stormwater department. We are not allowed to exceed the stormwater runoff in the redevelopment. So while I can't answer the question of how much does a water, does a tree intake, I can tell you that, you know, we've looked at this very hard with the city of Charleston. We are confident that we would not be causing any downstream impacts of neighboring properties with our stormwater.
So this is tree 2046?
That's correct.
2046, 25-inch black gum. And unfortunately, my arborist did not give me a comment on that one.
is it in a road or pond?
So, yeah, Eric, so where is that?
That is right where those double pipes are crossing
Oh, God.
with
It's in
the,
the road.
yeah.
Yep.
At the wetland crossing.
Do we want to, yes,
Is that it?
Because everything we've seen so far, I believe, is justified in this in a location that I don't see that there's a way to navigate around this without impacting something else. Does anybody else want to continue with seeing each and every tree? Or seeing enough to have a good.
I'm okay with what we've seen and what is on the chart, but I would like to see a few grade D live oaks, namely number 790, 874, and 885.
These are the three that I oh, yes.
This was just printed.
Well, it's changed, hasn't it?
They're just delineated, so it's.
Oh, this guy right here. So you want me to?
So it should have a red X a purple cloud, and a orange color. So it's 874, 790, and what was the last number?
885.
885.
Okay, so 874 is this one here. All right. So between the two lines here. There's your 874, which is in that lot.
So it's all the same sheet.
Okay, good.
What does the arborist say on it?
Let's see, 74 uprooted,
Uprooted.
and it is a quad stemmed. So he's got it as an 8 plus 9.5 plus 12 plus 13.
Where is it located?
Let's move off this. So right, that big red X below the big pipe on the right.
In between the two lots.
Right there, yes.
I would like to see a canopy picture of that tree.
There should be one. If there's a picture, there's a second picture along with it. So there's the bottom, and then they do the top one as well.
Okay. So there's that, and then I have to go
Oh, there you go, one and two.
this.
Look at that. Very thorough.
It's the one on the right hand side, so it's kind of broken a little bit here. So they're competing in the middle, and they both go opposite directions.
That's both of,
So it's this guy right here comes up.
okay.
What species are we talking about?
That's a live oak.
Live oak.
Is the live oak?
It is.
Angle.
What happened to the other 3 leaders, though?
We go back to.
Without seeing the field, I couldn't tell you.
Well, one's broken off.
Well, that one's not even measured though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that a cavity we're looking at on the earth? Is that just the shadow between on the right side? Where you see the two coming up? Is that a cavity or?
No, it's just a crotch.
Yeah, I can't tell from here.
It also looks like there's a cavity in this far right hand
That's what I was asking.
leader there.
What, here?
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether it's just shade
Oh, there.
or
Jennifer, I'm almost thinking that if it was uprooted, that the leaders on the right are trying to become dominant. Like they were like laterals, but then because the tree got partially uprooted,
Yeah.
now they're heading toward the sky. See what I mean? It's kind of like
Went from this time.
I wish we could see it. I'm just super interested in that because there are some very cool trees around town that were uprooted in Hugo. It doesn't look like this is one of them though.
depending on which way the lean is, if it's parallel to the lot line, then maybe it could stay.
What do you mean?
The way, the way we saw it leaning like this, and then the ones coming up, and if that was parallel to the lot lines, rather than leaning in towards one of the lots. See what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like going
Yeah,
this
he
way.
was running on the property
Yeah,
line
that
versus
way.
going
Yeah.
to the property.
well, I'm looking at it more of is it sustainable within the tree itself, within the structure of the tree itself, or has it led to structural defects that no matter how much land is around it, without the surrounding forest, it would be a goner?
if that makes
component,
sense.
if I can add, is that because it's in a full block of lots that are back to back and roads, the majority of the roads on the high portion of the property are still being built to plus or 3 feet in some instances. So even if we save that, it would be in a hole that I would have, I don't know, it would drain it.
We're not generally supporting wells anymore.
Yeah, and I'm going a step beyond that and just looking at the tree in of itself. But thank you. The next one, so we looked at that one. Did we see 790? So it appears, so just to summarize on that tree, it appears as though between the quad leaders and the uprooted nature of it, that the leaders appear to be very wrong and not interesting. You know, they grew in competition. Mm-hmm. And so I don't feel that that's what I was hoping for, if that makes sense. So I agree with the D.
We're gonna go to 885 first and then 790. So that is.
It's located.
Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted to see where it's located? Yeah.
Never mind.
So it's
yeah.
on the edge of the road, above that cross street in the block.
All right.
So
That one I might even say is an F. That's horrible. Thank you. And 790.
So you saw that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, 790 is north of that. So let me travel up a little bit here. Find the camera.
And it's located in.
Oh, you want to see where it's located? Sorry. Just in the edge road front of lot. It's the middle bubble. The middle bubble.
I don't know if it's easier to see here. Pull up.
Yes, it's that one.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's that one and
And that one looks like a termite mound. So I agree with the removal of those.
oh, there's the crown.
You graded at a D.
Super cool tree if it was in the marsh, away from development.
Okay, any others that are bubbled? The bubble, we have pictures.
I think I've seen enough.
I have to.
And that with the conversations with staff and everything that's happened, that it's been planned. And
I have one other question that is not so much the trees, but it's more about legal lot lines. So the B trees that this area, this B tree, where it's pinched down, is this where the property line is 50 feet?
No.
That's off river, which is where the two removals are. That's the
Okay. What is the likelihood that there could be a redrawing of that access through there? What is that process like? Friendly neighbors or?
as far as, reaching out to the adjacent owners.
They would have to acquire more
Right.
property. They'd have to buy property from the neighbors.
Okay.
It was also saving,
So it would,
it was also to save.
It would have to be willing to sell.
So,
Yeah.
so if you,
Jennifer,
they're stuck.
there's two here that are B grade.
Okay.
Right.
and those are in the 50-foot wide
50
section of the
foot.
property.
But I think you referenced that drawing.
And
That drawing's over here,
Thank you.
and that's where
So
they can
wetland
speak to
and
their
wetland.
wetland crossing permit, but you can't, it's a pinch point. You can't come through all these trees, I would imagine, to get to the here. So that's the most.
What is that square
That's a different property.
Okay.
They don't
Yes, so
control
that's
that.
what you see coming through
Yeah,
here.
it almost looks like this.
And so that road is real close to the corner of that other property.
It had no access at some point.
Right.
There he goes.
There might have been a lawsuit or something to
Okay.
get this access.
Thank you. Have they baked you bread and brought it over yet, or
I
no?
wish.
Okay. I mean, it would be nice to have the option to at least try. You know, if there's a way to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what these are the only options we have. We can cut down these trees, or we can
That's
buy
where
some
we
land and save the
entered
trees.
the woods right there.
But
It's just a
we
vacant.
don't live in we don't live in
Most
Disney
likely,
World.
they're-
Do you
You can
know
see
what
that-
the forest looks like?
That
through
neighboring
there?
lot's
Is
encumbered
there-
by wetland too, though.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, so let's talk about the one on the left first. It's mostly wetland. We've got our road going through definitely the skinniest part from a wetland perspective. But we went out there and looked at it, and the wetland for sure continues through and kind of where's your photo, Tom?
See what
So-
the adjacent property is.
Yeah, so that is wetland on their property.
Okay.
So it would definitely be increasing our wetland impacts, and then on our property, our wetland
Oh.
line is there. So we do have a very small wetland impact through this area, but we've really tried to meander through the high ground, the little bit of high ground that we do have through that area. Then, to Eric's point earlier, everywhere else that we could potentially get down to the southern portion of this property, the wetlands are much wider and the tree coverage is also much greater. And we don't really have the option to do it as kind of two separate little neighborhood pods because we do have to provide two accesses for fire.
Okay. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right, so then I want are there any other? Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Any other discussion? Or have we reviewed enough? And are we ready to move forward?
We reviewed the B trees. We
The B trees
removed
are only
most of
three.
the three. We reviewed a lot of the C trees. We looked at the Ds that were requested. Isn't anything that we
Okay, so I just want to hop on the other side of this. So the staff recommendations have a minimum of 2.5 caliber inches for the trees. And so I was wondering, should we put a maximum on that as well, or how is that usually handled?
Oh, for the upside. It's got 60% at 2.5, and then 40% that could increase to lower the number of trees, but it was 2,000 caliber inches. You want to put a max of no greater than 8 inches or no greater than.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like we really need to, but I was just wondering what everybody's thoughts are on that. Or actually, also, so if it's a minimum of 2.5 caliber inches, then is it usually a maximum of 4 inches or?
I didn't really think in that terms. I think what I was actually trying to do is if you take 60% of the 2,000, that came up to 1,200 and divide it by 2.5, that's 480 trees at 2.5 inch. So reforestation, I think I should have maybe put maximum 2.5 inch, but my error. And then the other, I think 800 inches.
And are we able to add the stipulation that they
So-
can't come back for individual?
You can't get full credit for a street tree. So minimum street tree is 2.5 inch, so you get 1.5 inches if you bump up to 4 inch. So 800 inches divided by 1.5 equals 533 street trees. And you did some math, you were trying to figure out how many you think the neighborhood is gonna be required to plant.
And we're very close. So, I had 1,975 is the mitigation that I calculated. Obviously, you're the guy that actually does that, so we like your number. So my math was 527 trees to be upsized or slightly higher, and they should be mitigation slightly higher, and then 296 trees to be planted, and that assumed that they would be 4 inches. So again, that 296 would be slightly higher since your mitigation is slightly higher.
The intent is quantity over size and quality. We can tailor the plan, we'll have to work with Eric on it regardless, but I personally prefer to put the money into a 4-inch tree than more 2.5-inch trees, especially knowing that honestly finding a home for 300 trees in the open space we have is probably going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I would prefer to put in larger trees just so they're a little bit more of an immediate impact to the aesthetics of the community, but that's just my opinion.
They also have a better chance of survival larger than 4-inch versus a 2.5.
No. But it's the complete opposite. But it makes more of a difference when you say when we're talking about a 6-inch tree and not a 4-inch tree. Like the difference between a 2.5-inch versus 6-inch, you're gonna have a better likelihood of survival with a 2.5. 4-inch is still good. The thing is when the 2.5-inch acclimate quicker, and so it'll typically they've done a lot of studies recently even where the 2.5 are surpassing the size of the 4-inch because they are able to acclimate quickly.
And they're being required to, there's so many being required, they could have availability issues and there might need to be a little flexibility, working with Eric.
Right. But what he's talking about also with the size, with the number of trees and just thinking about how they grow into each other. So anyways, I completely trust Eric and staff to handle all of that.
Have we addressed when we make these types of approvals that the applicant can't come back for individual tree removals, or do we have to add that to our conditions?
Isn't that in the?
There's been very few cases, I think, and I think I can recall any one that this body approved something and then they had to come back and ask for additional.
Individual homeowners have.
Yeah.
Well, Lennar builds to suit, so they're gonna build the houses. They're gonna site them and build them all. Like, it's not like you're gonna sell the lot and somebody's gonna put a house on it.
But they're individual.
Yeah, so,
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but sometimes what will happen is things change over the course
Yeah.
of 5 years, and the tree that wasn't green becomes green, and they come back and that's good.
I'm fine with putting it in there. You can't do anything about the traffic. Wish you could.
Yeah, it's not this committee.
It's this body's job to hear those stipulation for stipulation that they can't come back before this body.
Yep.
I don't think that's unfortunate.
Not right when someone else owns the property, like someone that individual who buys the property.
Down the road, it's a different owner.
Any other questions or anyone want to make a motion?
Okay, well, this is an unpopular one. I make a motion to move to approve the staff recommendations.
Second.
All right, so the motion is for approval by Amanda, seconded by Ruthie. And it was with staff. recommendations and conditions. And we'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor, then say aye in favor.
Aye.
Aye in favor. Aye in favor. And those opposed? Do we abstain?
Aye.
In favor? Okay. That's approved 6-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.